What happens when two of the world's most scrutinized women sit across from each other on live television? At first, the stage looked like any other day on The View, the iconic set glowing under bright studio lights, the host buzzing with rehearsed energy, and the audience humming with anticipation. But beneath the polished surface, there was a tension no one could quite explain. It was the kind of silence that sits in the bones, the kind that warns of a storm before a single drop of rain falls. Meghan Markle walked onto the stage first, her white tailored suit gleaming under the lights. She smiled, waved, and soaked in the applause, though not all claps sounded equal. There were whispers too, murmurs that followed her wherever she went. Royal drama, family feuds, a lifestyle brand, a podcast, a woman who always carried both admiration and skepticism in equal measure. She settled into her chair, crossing her legs with perfect composure. Then came Angelina Jolie. The audience clapped louder, a different kind of applause. Warmer, steadier, almost reverent. Dressed in understated black, she glided onto the set with the quiet grace of someone who didn't need to try. No forced smile, no elaborate entrance. She simply existed, and the room leaned toward her. Meghan noticed it. She always noticed. Whoopi Goldberg welcomed them both warmly. We are so thrilled to have Meghan Markle and Angelina Jolie with us today. The first 10 minutes passed smoothly. The panel asked Meghan about her new initiatives, her advocacy for mental health, her lifestyle brand. She answered like a pro, polished and measured, though her eyes occasionally flickered toward Angelina as if to remind everyone who the other guest was. When it was Angelina's turn, she spoke softly but with conviction. She talked about refugee camps, schools built in war-torn regions, the faces of children who had lost everything. Her voice carried no rehearsed rhythm, no glossy marketing edge, just experience. That's when Meghan struck her first blow. I admire what Angelina has done, Meghan said with a controlled smile. But let's be honest, sometimes these Hollywood humanitarian trips look more like photo opportunities than real activism, don't they? The air snapped. The audience shifted in their seats. A sharp gasp fluttered through the crowd. Joy Bihar's eyebrows shot up. All eyes turned to Angelina. Angelina didn't flinch. Her posture remained perfect, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She tilted her head slightly and replied, calm but cutting, "If the work genuinely changes lives, Meghan, the cameras don't matter. It's not about the photo, it's about the people." The audience clapped, quick, instinctive, like a reflex. Meghan's smile didn't falter, but it hardened. "Of course, results matter," she said, her tone sharper now. "But let's not pretend image doesn't drive all of this. Some people," she glanced briefly toward Angelina, "know how to use that to their advantage." Angelina looked at her directly for the first time. The silence between them was louder than applause. "Authenticity," Angelina said softly, "is measured by what you do when no one is watching." The audience gasped again. Meghan adjusted her hair, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Well," she quipped, "not everyone needs to perform sainthood to stay relevant." The room froze. Joy leaned forward, hungry for the drama. Whoopi shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. And in that moment, everyone watching knew. This wasn't going to be just another celebrity interview. This was the beginning of a televised battlefield. As the cameras cut to commercial, Meghan leaned toward her water glass and whispered something under her breath. No microphone caught it, but the flash in Angelina's eyes suggested it wasn't complimentary. When the segment returned, the storm would no longer be waiting. It would strike. When the cameras came back from commercial, the set of The View looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The audience sat forward in their seats, sensing the storm. Meghan Markle adjusted her blazer, her eyes sharper now, her smile glued in place like a mask. Angelina Jolie leaned back slightly, hands resting on the table, her face calm but unreadable. The stillness of her presence only made Meghan's energy look more restless, more deliberate. Joy Behar tried to reset the tone with a forced chuckle. "Well, ladies, I think we can all agree the world needs more strong women doing strong things, right?" Angelina gave a diplomatic nod. "Absolutely." But Meghan leaned forward, voice laced with something more. "Oh, I totally agree. Some of us use our strength to inspire. Others prefer to remind us how important they are every time a camera flashes. The audience murmured. Was that a joke? Was it a jab? Angelina didn't respond right away. She didn't need to. Her silence was heavier than words. Whoopi stepped in. Let's talk about impact. Angelina, your work with the UN Refugee Agency has spanned over 2 decades. Meghan, you've brought attention to mental health and women's rights. What motivates you both to keep going? Angelina answered first, her voice steady. The people. Families I've met in refugee camps, children who have lost everything but still smile. They remind me this work isn't about me. It's about service. Before the co-host could redirect, Meghan jumped in. Right, though I do think who tells the story matters. It's one thing to fly into a refugee zone with security and press clearance, and another to live under scrutiny every single day. The comment landed like a blade. Angelina turned her head slowly, her eyes locking onto Meghan. There's a difference, she said coolly, between being scrutinized and being challenged, and a bigger difference between advocacy and branding. Gasps rippled across the studio. Meghan's half-smile froze, her hands tightening slightly on the table. Joy leaned forward. Angelina, are you saying Meghan's activism is less authentic? Angelina smiled politely, but her words were precise. I'm saying authenticity is measured by what you do when no one is watching, not by how many interviews you give about it. The audience erupted in whispers, a mix of shock and admiration. Meghan adjusted her hair again, a tell of irritation. Well, she said, with venom disguised as charm, I suppose some people just resonate more with modern audiences. It's called evolution. Younger generations expect openness, vulnerability, not savior complexes. For the first time, Angelina flinched. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. Still, her voice was steady. Openness is not the same as oversharing. Vulnerability doesn't mean monetizing trauma. The crowd gasped again. Whoopi shifted in her chair, but Meghan wasn't finished. Honestly, she said with a bitter laugh, I just think it's fascinating how people who've spent their whole lives being praised for beauty and talent suddenly feel threatened by voices they can't control. This time, Angelina didn't let the words pass. She leaned forward slightly, her tone lower, sharper. I didn't come here to compete in a personality contest, Meghan. I came to talk about displaced families, broken systems, women living under oppressive regimes. But somehow the conversation keeps circling back to you. The studio erupted, half gasps, half laughter. Meghan's eyes darkened. Oh, I'm so sorry, she hissed, sarcasm dripping. I forgot this was your show. Sarah Haynes jumped in nervously. I think what we're seeing here are 2 different approaches to advocacy, and maybe that's okay. There's space for both. But Meghan wouldn't let it go. Is it advocacy, she smirked, or a performance of humility? Some people wear their cause like a crown, others like a costume. Angelina's lips curved into the faintest smile. Then she leaned in, and some people mistake attention for a purpose. The words cut like glass. The audience went silent, waiting for Meghan's response. For the first time, Meghan's mask slipped. Her jaw tightened, her hands trembled ever so slightly as she reached for her water glass. But her voice came out steady, defiant. You know what this is? This is exactly what people warned me about. Women like you pretend to support women, but the moment someone else shines, you tear them down. That's not empowerment, that's territorial. Angelina's expression didn't change. She let out a soft, almost amused laugh. No one shines too bright for me, Meghan, but I do take issue with people who confuse the spotlight for substance. The temperature in the studio dropped. Joy whispered, oh my God, under her breath. Whoopi tried to cut to commercial, but the damage was done. The battle lines were drawn, the words sharper with every exchange. And when the cameras faded to black, everyone knew the third act would be explosive. The storm wasn't just coming anymore. It was here. The third segment began with a silence so heavy it seemed to press down on the entire studio. The cameras rolled, but no one believed this was just television anymore. Meghan Markle sat rigid at the edge of her chair, her smile frozen, her jaw clenched. Across from her, Angelina Jolie radiated stillness, calm, composed, unshaken. The contrast was unbearable, and the audience could feel it. Whoopi Goldberg's voice cracked slightly as she tried to take control. Well, welcome back. I think we're all still processing what's just unfolded here. Meghan leaned into her microphone, her voice sharp. Process what exactly? That a woman with a platform, a husband, and a cause still isn't allowed to speak without being branded a narcissist? The audience shifted uncomfortably. Joy Behar shook her head. No one called you that, Meghan. Meghan let out a bitter laugh. No, but that's what you're all thinking, isn't it? That I hijacked this conversation. That I made it about myself. She turned directly to Angelina, her eyes narrowed. Why don't you just say it? Angelina blinked once. Then calmly, devastatingly, she replied, You just did. The room froze. Even the crew behind the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Meghan's face hardened, the veneer of poise cracking. I came here to uplift women, she snapped, her voice trembling with fury. But apparently that's only acceptable if I sit quietly while Saint Angelina lectures us from her marble tower. Angelina turned slightly, her voice still even. No one asked you to be quiet, Meghan. We asked you to listen. The words landed like thunder. Meghan's chair scraped loudly against the floor as she stood, her heels clacking. The sound was sharp, jarring like a gunshot through the studio. She pointed toward Angelina, her voice raw. You don't get to lecture me. You don't know the first thing about what I've given up, about being hunted by tabloids, manipulated by an institution, abandoned when I refused to play their game. Angelina's tone softened, which only made it sting more. You were given a choice, Meghan. Some of us never had one. Gasps rippled through the audience. Meghan's hands balled into fists. Her breathing grew heavy, her chest rising and falling in short bursts. She turned to the panel, her voice breaking. You see what this is? This is the problem with women like her. They pretend to empower, but really they gatekeep. They own suffering and no one else is allowed to speak unless it fits their version of empowerment. Angelina's gaze didn't waver. She leaned forward slightly, her words delivered in a whisper that cut sharper than any scream. Empowerment isn't about owning suffering. It's about using it to uplift others, not turn it into a podcast series. The audience went dead silent. The blow was merciless. Meghan's face crumbled for a split second before she masked it with rage. You're just another bitter actress clinging to relevance, she spat, her voice shaking, throwing stones at someone younger, louder, and more loved. Angelina didn't blink. Her reply was measured, surgical. I'd rather be relevant for what I do than infamous for what I say. The audience gasped. Some clapped. Others just stared in disbelief. That was it. Meghan's composure shattered. Her breathing ragged, her hands trembling, she hissed, You think you're untouchable. You think your trauma is more valid. But the truth is, you're just afraid. Afraid that someone else might finally outshine you. Angelina's expression remained still, her voice low. The spotlight only blinds those who need it. Meghan froze. Her eyes widened, her jaw locked, and then, without another word, she turned on her heel and stormed off the set. The sound of her heels striking the floor echoed like a countdown clock. The studio gasped. Some in the audience rose to their feet. Others sat in stunned silence. Whoopi exhaled, her voice dry. Well, we won't be airing that part in reruns. The audience laughed nervously, but the tension still clung to the air like smoke after an explosion. Angelina remained seated, perfectly composed. She folded her hands, her face unreadable, her silence louder than Meghan's exit. Sarah Haynes leaned in and spoke softly, almost to herself. I think we just witnessed the most explosive moment in daytime television history. And she was right. Meghan Markle's storm off from The View would dominate headlines for weeks. Some would call it courage, others would call it a meltdown. But one truth was undeniable. Angelina Jolie's calm precision had dismantled Meghan's performance, word by word, until only silence and heels against the floor remained. It wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a reckoning, and the world would not forget it.